Okay, welcome back. So the second part of the presentation is a demonstration in how to make a mala bracelet. And if you've registered for the summit, there was a special code to put in to click onto and order your kit from Bead Shop. And in your kit, you would have received everything you need in order to make a mala bracelet. And here is the mala bracelet. This is using blue agate, and a mala is really a meditation bracelet. It's also known as a worry bracelet. It actually is used in a lot of religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, and we know it in English as rosary beads. And it's a way of keeping track of the prayers, and it usually consists of 108 gemstones or seeds. In this case, we're doing a bracelet, so we would have about 25 to 27 beads. And in this style, I also included 2 silver spacers in addition to a lotus blossom. And if you believe in crystal healing, the stones are selected for their particular types of healing properties. And in this case, the kit that you will get from beadshop.com includes impression jasper, and that stone's healing properties are represent tranquility and calmness. For the purpose of my demonstration, I'm going to be using Amazonite. And these are a little bit larger. These are 8mm beads. And Amazonite also has the same properties in terms of calmness and helps with meditation. And I think during this time with COVID and also anyone who's in cancer treatment, having a way to be able to add to centering yourself, meditating. This is what I find with beading. I find it's very meditating when I'm doing that. So basically, you're going to be learning 2 techniques. One, in basic beading, you'll be learning basic stringing, which is the basis for all types of jewelry you can make, such as bracelets and necklaces. You'll also be learning how to knot, and we'll be doing a square knot in addition to a surgeon's knot. And very easy to do. So if you can do a square knot, in other words, if you can tie your shoes, you can make this bracelet. So with that, you also got in your kit 0.7mm of Stretch Magic. And this is the cord we'll be working on. And you can see the cord right here. It's an elastic stretch cord. And I chose this. Traditional malas are usually done using silk thread or cotton cord such as this. This happens to be Ceylon. And, but for the purpose of this presentation, being able to have a stretch elastic cord just for beading will help with people's various size wrists. And so it gives you a little bit more of a play. Plus you'll be able to make, you're getting a whole roll of Stretch Magic. There's about 16 feet of this. And so you can make many, many bracelets out of this. In addition to that, you will have the impression jasper, 25 stones. You'll also have the lotus blossom in silver. And you will also have 2 spacers or round beads that will go on either side of the lotus blossom, as you can see here. And in addition, you'll get a bead mat. This is my bead mat, and you'll have one that'll be made out of foam. And you'll also have the snippers, which will help. These are thread snippers that will help you cut the cord. And additionally, if you would like, you might need to have a measuring tape to measure how much elastic cord to cut here. Or you may want a bead stopper. This is a bead stopper, and we do this to put it at the end of the cord so that as we're stringing our beads on, it holds our beads in place so we don't lose them. If you don't have a bead stopper, you can actually use this piece of Scotch tape and tape it down so that as you're beading, your beads will stay on and the tape will hold it down on your board. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to measure out probably we want to do first the size of your wrist. And you want the widest part of your wrist. And here, most people have a size 7-inch wrist. That's the average size. And you want the widest part so that when you slide your bracelet over, it will be able to slide right over that. And I usually like to give myself a great deal of room. So I have about, this could be maybe about 8 or 9 inches. Just for the purpose, let's measure it. Hard to see because this is clear, but I usually like to double and be very generous, because at the end, when you tie the knots, you want to make sure you have enough of an ending to be able to tie the knot. So I'm going to cut about maybe 14, 15 inches here. And when you cut, you're going to take your snippers and you're going to cut at an angle there. And the other thing you're going to do is you're going to stretch your cord. You want to give it, you want to condition it. That way you will have no slack when your bracelet is done, because the last thing you want to do is see the stretch elastic in between the beads. So by stretching it, that really helps. Okay, you can move that out of the way. And bring my Amazonite here. I'm going to attach my bead stopper to hold it in place. And then the next thing you do is you're gonna start stringing. Now, in some cases, mala bracelets or meditation bracelets have may also have what's called a guru bead, and that's usually a bead that looks like this. Sometimes they're in wood, sometimes they're in metal or made out of seeds. And in this case, it's a round bead with 3 holes and another bead that has a hole down the center. And you would attach your ends through that. And sometimes a tassel is added. And the guru bead really is there just to keep track, or when you end your prayers or begin your prayers. It's just a way of keeping track, similar to here in the rosary. When you get to the end of your prayers, you know you have sort of the guru bead here to tell you that you can either repeat or stop. And then the tassel is there, and it represents the spirit, and that's what some people believe. All right, so with that, I'm going to start stringing. We have about 25 Amazonite beads here, and you can string all your beads on at once. You want to make sure you find the hole. And again, having your elastic cut at an angle really helps you get that cord into the hole. These are 8 millimeters, so they have a fairly good size hole. And sometimes you're going to have, beside the charm that you get, the lotus blossom, which is really lovely. As you can see, the impression is on both sides. And the lotus represents, again, you know, it's a flower that sits on the water, and it's very calming, and it represents all the turbulence that is underneath that we go through. And then as it rises to, as you see the flower on the surface, you see the calmness that we can actually break through that turbulence to get to. Some case you will also have the spaces that you'll actually have a whole bag full of spaces. So you could, if you wanted to, do string every 5 beads and add a spacer and then continue on in that pattern, or you just can continue stringing as I'm going to do. As we know in beading, there are no mistakes, and whatever you choose to do is your own design. But in this case, a mala is pretty simple and has, you know, these basic components right here. So we continue on. Now, the one thing I want to sort of be clear on when we talk about crystal healing, and you probably notice in the in presentation, you indicate that, you know, there are some people that believe in alternative medicine, and in no way am I promoting that alternative medicine should be in place of any cancer treatment that you receive. But I think that we're looking at this more, at least I do, more as a symbolic type of property. So for me, I choose stones based on their symbolic property of also their attractiveness, their softness, their color, their size, so many various different reasons. So I just want to be clear on that. But there are folks that do believe in crystal healing, and I say that's, if you do so, then that's perfectly fine. But in terms of as an alternative to any type of medical treatment or cancer treatment. There is no research that really supports its efficacy. All right, so have about 25 beads. The other thing is you can stop periodically. You can try it on your wrist just to see if you need a few more. And again, you don't want it to be too tight. You want it to be, I like my bracelets to have a little give to them. But then again, you don't want it to be too loose that it gets caught on something, particularly when you have a charm on it. Now, when I was going through chemotherapy, one of the things that I worked on that I got into was bead embroidery. And I found that for me, helping with the side effects of treatment, particularly the neuropathy in my hands and the chemo brain I experienced, that fogginess that you feel, not able to focus was a big, big thing. And I found that beading helped me sort of work through those side effects I was experiencing. The other thing too is it also helped me in terms of when I felt down, I could pick up my beads and make something pretty and felt a sense of accomplishment afterwards. And I think that's what I'd like to talk about in terms of when you are doing the creative or visual arts. You want to be able to have that sense of creating something that is pleasing, that you feel hey, I did this. And that's what I think is really striking about doing any kind of creative art or visual arts, whether it's painting, a mechanism, a way of expressing your feelings. And particularly with COVID, as all of us have seen, many people have turned to the creative arts, crafting. A lot of parents have gotten into crafting with the kids. A lot of kids have got into crafting. And we have used with kids, particularly dealing with kids' feelings and their expressions, we have used art therapy I'm going to put this one aside. It seems to have a crack in it. Oh, there's the hole. It is a way of helping them express their feeling. I'm actually going to put that one aside and go with this. That has actually a crack in it. And sometimes that's the other thing with your beads. When you see them, you want to examine them to make sure that the holes are smooth and that there are no cracks in them, because you also don't want it to cut your cord, because it'll cause some wear and tear on the cord. All right, so I've strung all my beads, and I have maybe approximately 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, about 25 right here. I'm going to add one of the spacers. And then I'm going to add the charm. So the spacer sort of couches on either side. And then I'll add the other spacer. Now, again, in a traditional mala, you would be knotting in between each bead. And the knot would be particularly a good size so that it keeps the bead in place. But it also prevents the bead from touching the other bead. So there is no damage to the beads. And so that's one reason why you would do knotting in between. All right, take off the bead stopper. So now I have everything strung. I'm going to stretch it one more time. And I'm going to do what's called a square knot or a surgeon's knot. And this is easily done by doing right over left, left over right, as some people will say, or over the river and through the woods is another way. So if you're left-handed, it might be left over right, right over left. I'm left-handed and I tend to do it left over right, but for the purpose of this, I'll do right over left. So you take the two ends and you go right over left. And then you pull them gently, and you want to get them right up against the hole of that bead. All right, and then give it a good tug. All right. And now you're going to do left over right. So you take the left side and you take that left end and you go around. And here's where the surgeon's knot comes in. You're going to go around one more time. All right. And then you pull both ends, and I kind of do it this way, and you slide it down and you give it a good tug to make sure. And don't be afraid of it. At first, you know, sometimes working with elastic, if we pull too tight, it'll pull the beads apart. If we pull not tight enough, it'll loosen the knot. So you want to inspect your knot to make sure that it is secured, and that is pretty secure. There. And then what you would do is you would pull through this cord and you'll pull the knot through the hole in the bead so you can hide it. And then you would take your snippers and you want to be able to cut again at an angle. Give yourself a tiny bit of a tail as close as you can. You don't want to you don't want to cut the knot. And there you have it. And then you can just finagle that little knot right into the hole. So there you have your mala bracelet, all ready to go. And again, it's got a little bit of play in it. And I'll actually trim that end a little bit more. And when you're putting it on, you want to be able to slide it on over your hand, just like so. There you go. And then you can slide it off. Rather than stretching your hand out, most people will stretch the bracelet. So that is how you make a mala bracelet. And again, repeating that you have at least 25 stones. You would string, you're going to just cut your elastic to the size of your wrist, double it, give yourself a couple more inches to give yourself a little room. Stretch the cord first very well. Cut the cord at an angle, and then you can use a bead stopper or you can use a piece of tape to hold your cord down on the board, and then start stringing your beads in any different way you desire. So when you get to the end, you're going to add your 2 spacer beads here on either side of the charm, and then tie a knot. And the way you tie that knot again is right over left, left over right, and then around one more time. And there you have, you then will trim and then kind of fit that knot into the hole of the bead, in between the spacers if you like. And that is how you make a mala bracelet. And so with that, I'm going to stop and we'll be able to take some questions.